All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, thank you for being patient with me. We've experienced this week, I just want to start off by saying, all types of technical difficulties, specifically when it comes to the camera. So we've been down for a couple of weeks. We're waiting for some things to arrive in the mail so that we could broadcast, regular looking podcast, if you will. So anyway, just for those of you that are wondering, Carl, why is there a big TV screen behind you and why does this look so unprofessional? I just decided we're just going to have to roll this way. And once we get the parts that we need to make things correct, we will get them back up to par. So Lord willing, that'll be next week. There's been all types of things that I have not opined on this week. And so I'm just going to tackle a few of those things. I'm going to give you some of the latest headlines, and I want to take on an issue. What you're probably going to see me start doing is taking on bigger issues or macro issues. I'm going to deal with the daily news and all that kind of stuff and try to keep you informed and up to speed on what's happening in daily news. But I'm also going to be taking on big topics. One of the ones that I'd like to take on today is Christianity. Christianity and socialism, and give you some reasons as to why the socialism worldview is antithetical to Christian beliefs. I believe that is extremely important. A lot of people have wondered why why America, in my opinion, has fallen. And I do believe that America has fallen to the left. That isn't to depress you. That is just so that you know where we are. If you don't know where we are, it is hard to build back a society. And I do believe, I consider myself a constitutional restorationist now, because I do believe that our society has to be built back. And it'll happen at the political level, but first and foremost, it'll happen at the church or in the church. That's the only way that you're going to change the culture. It is the only way. And even if you're an atheist, even if you're not a churchgoer, I believe that most understand that when you step into a church, it doesn't mean that you're perfect, or at least I hope you understand that much, but there has to be moral absolutes in order for a civil society to be able to survive. All right, so I want to talk about that a little bit, give you 10 reasons. I forget where I got this. Let me look that up real quick, because I like to make sure that I'm giving the right people credit. I've written on this stuff myself, frankly. I wrote a column, I think, a few years back during the BLM riots. Oh, it's from the Christian Post. And why black Christians shouldn't vote. Why black Christians shouldn't vote for Democrats. But I want to tackle this socialism and Christianity from a larger perspective, and not just narrow it down to minority communities, because I'm frankly tired of the identity politics. But I felt like the column that I wrote at the time was absolutely needed. All right, so let me just give you some quick headlines. And actually, I'll probably tackle more than 5, but I'm just going to go through the headlines briefly. Biden labels Houthi rebels. This was yesterday. Rebels as specifically designated global terrorists. Remember, Trump did that. Biden undid it when he became president, and the goal was to just do everything the opposite of Trump. And what we're seeing is that just simply doesn't work. You can't just reverse policy because you hate people. You have to think of the American people, and that's exactly what Biden failed to do. Again, these are headlines that are, I believe, still relevant today, but these are some of the ones that hit yesterday. Biden's DOJ, and I'm sure you heard many of them, but I'll just give you my quick tidbits. Biden's DOJ admits that Hunter Biden's laptop is authentic. No crap, Kremlock. We all knew that it was authentic. It's weird to me that they're finally willing to come out and admit it. Except that they fear that they could be exposed were a Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. And I'll say that even if you hate Ron DeSantis or even if you hate Trump, the primary hasn't played out. It looks like Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. But this is my perspective. How you feel is how you feel. I don't believe in stifling anyone's free speech, and I don't believe that just because the first caucuses and all that kind of stuff, even though I even came out and said, listen, it would be a miracle, I think, at this point for a DeSantis or even a Haley to win, but it's not impossible. I don't believe at this point. And what I don't want to do is there are a lot of people that have not yet expressed their free speech rights in their primary vote yet. And I'm not going to tell them not to do it. I just think that is anti-American. For me, my perspective is even if DeSantis loses or pulls off a miraculous comeback, or even Nikki Haley, God forbid, I think that every American deserves to have their say, and you have to have the process, let the process play out. Carl, what about, we're spending all this money on, man, give me a freaking break. And nobody, honestly, I think that's a sorry excuse to me, it's worth vetting candidates and have them fight, and iron sharpens iron if it means saving the country. So I really don't give a flip about $200 million as opposed to $34 trillion worth of debt. I want somebody to really do something and open borders and stuff like that. I'm just being real with you. I know people say that, and I think it's just an easy thing to say, and I don't think it's oftentimes thought through. I've said it in the past myself, but I see the censorship with the left. I don't want to see it on the right. All right, let's see. Interest payment on our debt, national debt, reveal the issue would tax the rich. Obviously, $2 trillion is all, if we confiscated all the wealth from the wealthiest Americans, the Bill Gates of the world, the Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk, that would not be enough to pay off what we're paying in interest every year in debt, with our national debt. All right, let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm just going through these real quickly here. Majority. Okay. All right. So some of this stuff, I think we can hold off. Chinese birth rates declined by over $500,000. That's why I say social conservatism is important. I understand that a lot of people are scared to talk about social conservatism on the right because the left has been able to frame it where we're always on the defense. But the truth of the matter is we're never going to win the cultural battle if we don't take on social issues and prove that the left are extremists. I do think there are smarter ways to argue some of those points. So we do have to be mindful of that. All right, let me just move on real quick. Forgive me here. Forgive me because, good. This is today. All right. So I know that I'm pressing a little bit. I'm sorry. I'll get to these. All right. So let's do this. By the way, this podcast is brought to you by MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell at MyPillow.com has fabulous products on sale, on special for you right now. If you give him a call at 858 or MyPillow.com, 800-858-0263, MyPillow.com. Plenty of deals available for you. Giza Dream Sheets, plenty of other products that are literally 50% off and more. MyPillow.com, promo code Carl, C-A-R-L. Or give them a call, 800-858-0263, and you'll be able to support American jobs, American manufacturing, and get a good night's rest. All right? So, having said that, also follow me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm a little frustrated because I've not been on for a couple of days. There's so much I want to bring to you. I don't have the time to do it. So I do want to get to the things that I'll talk about today. I am going to release a podcast by tomorrow. I do want to talk about J6 and the revelations this week that I've not been able to talk about. And I think that is so important to do. But here's where I want to start. Let's start with this. There were a couple of people that made some great points at the World Economic Forum. And again, we're going to be talking about how socialism is antithetical to a biblical worldview, to Christians. I want to touch on the New Hampshire primaries, just talk to you about the delegate process just a little bit, and how feds work behind the scenes to flag purchases of Bibles and extremists. I believe these are some of the most important stories of the week. So we will get to those. But without any further ado, I know some of you have heard this audio clip, but I want to play it for you again. This is Javier Milei. He is the newly elected president of Argentina, and this guy, at least thus far, is the bomb. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and play Javier Milei.
Good afternoon.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Today, I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger. And it is endangered because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. Unfortunately, in recent decades, motivated by some well-meaning individuals willing to help others, and others motivated by the wish to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We're here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root cause. Do believe me, no one better placed than us, Argentines, to testify to these 2 points.
I love that. I mean, this guy is newly elected. He goes to the World Economic Forum. Carl, why are you even bothering with the World Economic Forum? This stuff is so crazy. Why do you even bother? Well, my answer is simple. It's coming to the United States. I mean, it's as simple as that. We see these global elites, the Joe Bidens of the world, the John Kerrys of the world, the Al Gores of the world. They get into places of power in politics, and then they believe that they're the smartest people that exist. The Bill Gates of the world, they have so much money. They want to get together and use their power and money to dictate what the rest of the world can do. And just because these people may be smart, and Joe Biden isn't one of them, and neither is John Kerry, but although they may have expertise, let's put it that way, in one particular area, or maybe even a couple, it doesn't mean that they have the right to dictate who gets to live or die, who gets to eat what, who gets to drive or fly what. These people are completely evil, in my opinion. So going to the World Economic Forum and tackling this directly right in front of their face sends a strong message to these people that we will not be dominated by you. We will not capitulate to you. You don't get to run the world. You don't get to run our country. We do that. Man, this is so crucial. It's so important because these people want to dictate who we are. How the heck are people in the World Economic Forum, people that are arguing against climate change, global warming, that fly on their little fancy jets and use all of this jet fuel, how the heck are they going to preach to us? They want to get rid of cows and all this kind of stuff, but I guarantee you they eat the best meats, the best products you can imagine, but they don't want you to. They want to be able to travel and do anything they want to do, but they don't want you to be able to do that. Guys, that is sick, that is evil, that is twisted, and that is godless. All right? These people think they are gods, and that's why we've got to fight back against them. I got another clip that I want to play for you, and forgive me for those of you that are seeing on YouTube. I know this looks bad. Our camera is down. I am literally waiting for a cable to arrive so that we can get it back up and running. So we're literally using the video on my laptop. So if it looks bad, forgive me. But I couldn't. I have not broadcasted for the last couple of days as a result, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I appreciate you guys being patient with me. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and roll this next clip.
The kind of person, and I'll be candid here because I think I've been invited here to be candid. The kind of person who will come into the next conservative administration is going to be governed by one principle, and that is destroying the grasp that political elites and unelected technocrats have over the average person. And if I may, I will be candid and say that the agenda that every single member of the administration needs to have is to compile a list of everything that's ever been proposed at the World Economic Forum and object all of them wholesale. Anyone not prepared to do that and take away this power of the unelected bureaucrats and give it back to the American people is unprepared to be part of the next conservative.
And I'm sorry, I was just so happy. In your face. That's the way I like it. In your face, World Economic Forum. I absolutely love that. That is Kevin Roberts. He is the president of Heritage Foundation, and the Heritage Foundation, man, I got to make a donation. These fools have been fighting strongly. And I love this. I love this fight, but he is absolutely right. Anyone that's going to be president of the United States needs to reject the World Economic Forum and their proposals wholesale. Nobody elected these fools. Bunch of technocrats that are bored to death, got a lot of money to spend. They're absolutely godless. They have so much money. People kiss their butts all the time. People tell them how right they are, so they think they are gods, all right? But no, God actually created them. So I'm not going to listen to them. We have systems of government that we adhere to, so screw them. I'm so glad that both Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, and Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation dealt them a dose of reality. All right, so here's what I want to get into. Again, I got several topics that I want to talk about. I'll give you some of the. Let's talk about New Hampshire. New Hampshire is coming up next week. I believe it's on Tuesday. So I'm just looking at the polls right now, and good Lord, Haley is gaining ground on Trump. She's hoping to be able to overtake Trump in New Hampshire to keep her campaign afloat. I want you guys to keep this in mind, all right? New Hampshire is an open primary. What do you mean, Carl? All right, so Republicans can vote, independents and Democrats can cross over and vote in a GOP primary, Do you guys remember Operation Warp Speed, Operation Chaos when Rush Limbaugh was alive? Man, I miss that guy. But Operation Chaos, if you guys remember Operation Chaos, it was during the primary season, the primary battle between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and Rush was telling Republicans to cross over in open primary states, and even in some cases, if they would register as Democrats and then change your registration back in order to keep the primary season going against Hillary and Obama. I think that's what Democrats are trying to do. You guys may know that the only reason that Haley got as many votes as she did in Iowa is because she had a lot. I don't mean a small percentage. I forget the exact percentage. I don't want to quote it incorrectly, but she had a huge percentage of Democrats that crossed over to vote for her in Iowa. And that was, I think, the left's attempt in trying to take out DeSantis and then eventually trying to take out Trump. It didn't quite work in Iowa. I'm not convinced that it'll work in New Hampshire, but she is gaining ground. I mean, if you're looking at, listen, guys, I've been saying the polls were wrong. Apparently, I was wrong. These pollsters seem to be getting it together if I'm going based upon what we saw in Iowa. All right. So right now, if I'm looking at the Real Clear Politics average, you have Trump at 46.8. You have Haley currently registering at 33.3% and DeSantis at 6%. Oh my God, DeSantis is going to get blown away. I think DeSantis wants to. This isn't even my own idea. I did hear a snippet of Hugh Hewitt yesterday, and I must admit, I thought this was brilliant. And I didn't get to hear the entire interview, but I do suspect that Hugh Hewitt is right. And this is strategic for DeSantis. Listen, DeSantis is too conservative to win in New Hampshire. All right. He's just too conservative. You're not going to get a lot of independents right now and Democrats that are willing to look at him in a primary. A general may be different, but in the primary, they're going to try to get the most liberal candidate possible. So what you'll see are a lot of people, I think a lot of independents and Democrats gravitating to Haley. But I think DeSantis is okay with that based upon the theory that I heard on Hugh Hewitt's show, and it made sense. And again, I want to give Hugh the credit, is DeSantis won't perform as well in New Hampshire. He doesn't mind performing not as well in New Hampshire. I mean, obviously he'd love a upset, but there's no way he's going to get it there. He's registering at 6 points on the Real Clear Politics average. So if his voters go to Trump, then they get to stop the Nikki Haley train, so to speak, in its tracks, because apparently in South Carolina, Nikki Haley is not registering well. She's registering at 21 points currently, Trump at 52 and DeSantis at 11. Now that may change. And what DeSantis is hoping is that, based on Hugh Hewitt's theory, that he's hoping that Nikki Haley will lose a lot of momentum in New Hampshire after losing Iowa, spending so much money in Iowa and placing third and then if she gets devastated by Trump in New Hampshire, and then in South Carolina she'll get devastated there, perhaps people will stop looking at Nikki Haley, and then DeSantis will get his one-on-one. That's what he's hoping for before a Super Tuesday, or at least that's what Hugh Hewitt said, and I got to give him credit, and I believe he is absolutely right on this. I think it would be a smart strategy by DeSantis, even if he doesn't win. Listen, I see DeSantis and Trump as anti-establishment vote. That's the way I see it. So even when he got blown away in Iowa, what I saw was, yes, he got blown away, but also what I saw is 50% plus voted for Trump. All right, 20 plus percent voted for DeSantis. DeSantis is the strongest conservative in the race. I saw that as an anti-establishment vote with Nikki Haley losing. I thought that was a good sign regardless. All right, here's before we, let's play this before we get to this stuff. Let me share this real quick. All right, let me just give you some delegate rules. I just looked this up because I wanted you to understand what was going on. It is a race for delegates. If you're looking for, all right, why should DeSantis drop out, so on, etc. These guys are trying to accumulate points. These guys are trying to accumulate delegates so they have some leverage and they probably won't. All right, but this is just the way that it works, so you're informed. Here's the delegate rules for the Republicans in 2024. The president will be selected by delegates to the RNC, which will be held July 15th through 18th of this year in Milwaukee. So the Republican National Convention will be held in July. This is from Ballotpedia, by the way. Convention is the formal ceremony during which the party officially selects its nominee. All right, so there are an estimated 2,429 delegates for Republicans. 23 of those are pledged delegates. 104 are unpledged delegates. So to win the Republican nomination, the presidential candidate needs 1,215 delegates. So right now, if you look at the delegate count, and I don't see it on here. Okay, so the delegate, I don't see it on here. Oh, here it is. So right now, the delegate count with Trump winning Iowa is he got 20 delegates. Remember, you need 1,215 to become the nominee. You have DeSantis that gained 8 delegates. Nikki Haley gained 7 delegates, and Vivek Ramaswamy gained 3 delegates. So all of them walked away with some points. Obviously, Trump with the most points, and the goal is to get to 12-15. So I believe that Trump will win New Hampshire. I believe that he'll win South Carolina. And then the question is, will that momentum carry on till Super Tuesday? I suspect so. But what DeSantis is hoping is that he could get that one-on-one and challenge Trump on policies at that point, and then he can rack up delegates. We'll have to wait and see. I do believe that is an uphill battle. I'm just being real for the DeSantis campaign. But I'm not a hater like people that are hating on the guy. I just think that's wrong and stupid because he's the best conservative, governing conservative that we've seen in a generation. And I don't really think it's close. I mean, I love Trump, but I don't think it's close. So I don't want to destroy the guy that we may need in our future because they're not easy to come by, getting politicians that actually have a backbone. All right, now, having said that, okay. President Joe Biden's approval is at 42%. Disapproval is at 53%. That's actually a slight rise. The last time I looked at that, I think he was down to 39%. So that stuff will fluctuate. All right, now let me. So I gave you the delegate counts. Republicans need 1,215. I won't go through all of the details, maybe for a later podcast for you political nerds that are out there. But there's a such thing as proportional delegates, the winner take all states. That's pretty obvious. You win the primary. I'm not sure what New Hampshire is. I believe it may be a winner take all. I'm not exactly sure. But basically, if you win, like Trump won Iowa, a winner take all state would just take all the delegates. It wasn't proportional. Proportional is obviously proportional. DeSantis got some, Trump got the biggest share, and then Haley got some, and so did Vivek Ramaswamy. hybrid, that's a Republican RNC, describes hybrid allocation methods as those that combine other methods some states award at-large delegates on a winner-take-all basis, according to the statewide vote, and congressional district delegates on a winner-take-all basis, according to the vote within the district. Anyway, there's a lot. I'll have to go through this in a separate podcast because I do think this stuff is really important to understand. We need to understand the process in which we're under. All right, when it comes to Democrats and their delegates, they have a much higher threshold. Their estimated delegate count is 4,532. Now, remember, Republicans is almost half that number. Theirs is 2,429. The Democrats at 4,532. They have 3,788 pledged delegates, 744 automatic delegates, which are known as super delegates. So to win the Democratic nomination, a presidential candidate needs to receive support from a majority of the pledged delegates. On the first ballot, which is 1,895 pledged delegates. So if the convention is contested and goes to a second ballot or more, automatic delegates, commonly referred to as super delegates, are able to vote, and a candidate must receive majority support from all delegates. All right, so the super delegates can totally change the race. This is why I'm saying Joe Biden, if they're like, dude, this guy's just too far gone, or if his polls are really bad during the summer months, it is very conceivable that they could push that fool over the cliff, metaphorically speaking, of course, and install Gavin Newsom. I don't know who else they would install. I don't know who else they have on the bench. I don't think they would install Kamala Harris. She's just horrible. Everybody knows it. I'm not saying this to be mean, but everything the chick says, she just sounds so dumb. It is insane. So I can't foresee them the Democrat Party going with Kamala Harris if Joe Biden cannot make it. All right, now here's a story that I saw yesterday, and man, I wanted to come on and talk about it, but at least I'll share it today. I think it's great for going out of the weekend. It's something to consider because there's no doubt we are living in a post-constitutional America, and I don't say this to get you discouraged. You know, I hope that's not my intention. I hope that's not what I'm doing. I just want you to understand where we are, so that you understand how important your vote is and how important your voice is, and why no one should take your voice away. You shouldn't allow anyone to take your voice away. I don't care if that's a politician. I don't care if it's someone in the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. Don't let anyone take your voice away. You lose your voice, you lose your vote, we lose America. And right now we're at least not so far out, in my opinion, that we can't restore the Constitution. My fear is that we'll go so far out that it's just that there's irreparable harm. That is my concern. But I saw this and I thought it was so important because obviously the borders are probably the most important thing. At first, to me, it was the deep state restoring the rule of law. And that is very important. I believe that, they're virtually tied, if you will. But there's no doubt we have to seal up the borders. It has to be done on day one. I only have confidence that two people would do that. I have confidence that Trump would do it. I have confidence that DeSantis would do it. And frankly, I think DeSantis would actually probably be. I know people don't like to hear, Carl, you just hate Trump. No, I think DeSantis, based upon his record, I think he would probably be even tougher on the border. Trump got tough on the border and he talked tough on the border, but it wasn't until his last couple of years that he was phenomenal on the border. So I do want to give him credit for that, but it took a couple of years. All right, but I'm glad he eventually got there, and then he started coming out with some policy that was kicking booty. All right, but now let me say this. All right, so this was a story from Town Hall Hat Tip. The feds work with banks to flag purchases of Bibles and extremist texts. So this, according to the House Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, they fall under the jurisdiction of the House Judiciary Committee. Federal law enforcement agencies partner with a number of financial institutions to flag transaction with the terms quote unquote MAGA, quote unquote Trump, and more. They also monitored transactions at stores like Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop. Why would they do that? Guns, but honestly, not even just guns. What do you think of when you think of Cabela's and you think of Bass Pro Shop? I think of not just firearms, but you walk into these stores. And what you see initially, camping gear, you see fishing poles. You're talking about people that can survive for a period of time on their own, self-sufficient. And I think, maybe the government would want to take a look at those people. It may not necessarily be conservatives per se, but obviously there is a target on the heads of Trump supporters, patriots, conservatives, so on, etc. Other purchases linked to religious texts like Christian Bibles were flagged under the guise of preventing extremism. This is why I want to talk to you about Christianity versus socialism. The column from Town Hall goes on to say, the committee and select subcommittee have obtained documents indicating that following January 6, 2021, FINCEN distributed materials to financial institutions that, among other things, outline the typologies of various persons of interest and provide financial institutions with suggested search terms and merchant category codes, known as MCCs, for identifying transactions on behalf of federal law enforcement, close quote. These materials included a document recommending the use of generic terms like Trump and MAGA to search Zelle payment messages. Oh my God. As well as prior FINCEN. What is that? FinCEN. What does that stand for? Federal. I'm not sure. Financial Institute. I'm not sure what that stands for. But anyway, it goes on to say these materials included a document recommending the use of generic terms like Trump and MAGA to search Zelle payments. Payment messages, as well as prior FinCEN analysis of lone actor homegrown violent extremism indicators. According to this analysis, FinCEN warned financial institutions of extremism indicators that include transportation charges such as bus tickets, rental cars or plane tickets for travel to areas with no apparent purpose. Okay, I could see that if you're going to the Middle East, or the purchase of books, including religious texts and subscriptions to other media containing extremist views. In other words, FINCEN urged large financial institutions to comb through the private transactions of their customers for suspicious charges on the basis of protected political and religious expression. You guys might remember in the past, I've had both FBI whistleblowers, Kyle Seraphin on. I've had Stephen Friend on, I believe a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken. And both of them shared that basically after 9/11, the FBI, the DOJ, they kind of did their job combing through American society and weeding out a lot of the Islamic terrorist, and that type of extremism, the real threats to America. And then they had to justify their paychecks. So what did they do? They came up with terms such as domestic terrorists, homegrown domestic terrorists. I was at a speech with Brandon Strzok and Stephen Friend just a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned that how they came up, or they devised this term homegrown terrorism, and that way they could turn their focus on quote unquote domestic terrorism, and those tools that were given to the federal government to actually go after Islamic extremists were then turned on our fellow Americans and citizens. But Carl, why do you bring this up? Guys, we live in what was a Judeo-Christian society. Now, it isn't a theocracy. We don't force people to become Christians. We don't force people to become Jews, but we say these principles bring freedom, right? That's why we have the Bill of Rights. That's why our law adheres to the 10 Commandments that are in the Bible. I'm not a religious person. Yeah, you are. It's written on your heart. You know it's wrong to lie. You know it's wrong to steal. You know it's wrong to kill. You know it's wrong to cheat, with somebody else's wife or husband, and so whatever. You know that because God has written that on your heart. So even if you're not religious, I don't know what other source you would go to for objective truth except for the Bible. Now, having said that, there are 10 reasons, hat tip to Christian Post, why socialism, Marxism are antithetical to a biblical worldview. And I just want to talk about this. And I'll tell you why. Because I do believe that it is going to take a resurgence, what's the word that I'm looking for that we use in Christianity, Gabe? A revival. A revival in America in order to turn the country around. Having said that, I'm just reminded of this video of the Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud. This guy is a devout believer. He makes no bones about it. He doesn't claim to be perfect, but he uses his platform. In order to honor or in part to honor Jesus Christ. And I don't know why anybody would not want, particularly a young black man that is, has all this fame and fortune and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, he's not making as much money as he will in his rookie year. But I don't know why anybody would not want this man to succeed and edit anything he has to say.
CJ, your first playoff game in your first NFL season and a record-setting performance for you. What does this moment mean?
I mean, it's been amazing being in this city for as short as I've been, but the love that I've got, I've really just been doing it for Houston, man. People back home, I'm blessed enough to be in the position I am and blessed enough to be playing at a high level right now, and we got to just keep it going, but I'm super blessed.
So that was the edited version. It was NBC. Is that right, Gabe? Was that NBC? I think it was NBC that edited what he actually. Yeah, it is NBC. All right, so let's play the unedited version. This is what CJ Stroud actually said.
Your first NFL season and a record-setting performance for you. What does this moment mean?
First and foremost, I just want to give all glory and praise to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's been amazing being in this city for as short as I've been, but the love that I've got, I've really just been doing it for Houston, man. People back home, I'm blessed enough to be in the position I am and blessed enough to be playing at a high level right now, and we got to just keep it going, but I'm super blessed.
So many of your teammates contributed in this victory. How were you able to find so many targets?
Just the hard work we put in our practice. There's no me without my teammates, my O-line, my tight ends, my running backs, my receivers, my defense. We all put it together. When we playing complementary football, we're going to be hard to beat.
CJ, best of luck moving forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you. God bless.
All right, so he was pretty devout, right? He was pretty clear. Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, stuff like that. They cut that out right away. Seriously. Ask yourself this. In a world, in the United States, where, listen, there are plenty of black success stories, but let's be real. We can go in the hood, and there's plenty of stories where there's a lot of black young men that don't have fathers, that don't have role models. Why wouldn't you want them to hear everything that young man has to say? Because he's obviously being used by God. His dad is in prison. His dad is in prison. His mom is a single mom. Why wouldn't you want to hear what this kid has to say? And where he's gotten a lot of his strength from, so that you can elevate to the same levels that he has, spiritually and on this earth. All right, so now this is why I want to talk to you real quick about why socialism is incompatible with biblical Christianity. And the church has fallen prey to this. And when I say the church, I do primarily mean evangelical churches, but Catholics, Jews, many have fallen prey to this. So let's just go through this real quick. Number one, socialism is, and I'm gonna go back and review. But socialism is against the biblical view of the nuclear family. We'll tackle that. Number two, socialists claim education belongs solely to the state. We'll tackle that. Number three, socialists claim the state deserves the highest allegiance. We'll tackle that. Number four, socialists believe the abolition of private property and land and the application of all rents of land to public purposes. Number five, socialism advocates a progressive income tax. Number six, socialism opposes the rights of a family inheritance. Number seven, in socialism, the state attempts to control all communication. Number eight, in socialism, a utopia comes from a revolutionary change from the outside in. Number nine, socialism categorizes people as either the oppressed or the oppressors. Number 10, socialists believe that government is responsible for all social care. Let's go backwards. Let's tackle that. Starting with number 10 real quick. So in socialists, this is written by the Christian Post. They give scripture and verses as well that you can tackle. I'll go through this as quickly as possible. So Number 10, socialists believe the government is responsible for all social care. So in socialist and communist countries, the state is responsible for caring for the poor and providing all goods and services necessary for citizens. They would conceptually view families, churches, and nonprofits as competition to the state if they attempted to do the same. So imagine the government considering people of faith competition for good work. Well, Carl, why is that bad? All right. They say right here, contrary-wise, Scripture admonishes Christians, churches, and ministries to serve as benefactors to their larger secular community as witnesses to the gospel. Guys, let me just say this. It is not generosity. Listen, this is a very important point. Gabe, if I were you, I would probably, document this. It is not generosity when you take other people's money via taxes to give it, to redistribute it, to give it to poor people, and then pat yourself on the back as if you're generous. No. It's generosity when you take from what you have, when you sacrifice from what you have to give. That's generous. Because why is it generous? Because you feel the pain. It doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor. It's only generous when you give, not when you tell someone else to steal from somebody else and give it in your name. Number 9, socialism categorizes people as either the oppressed or the oppressors. All right. So they write at Christian Post, the Marxist revolutions were started by inciting the so-called proletariat to overthrow the social systems of the so-called bourgeois. All right, thus pitting poor and rich citizens against each other. This violates the biblical principles of justice and impartiality in which God commands us not to show favoritism to either the rich or the poor. That's Leviticus 19:15. Oh, by the way, the scriptures associated with number 10, which was socialists believe the government is responsible for all social care. The book of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. Also, the book of Galatians, 6:10, Titus 2:14, Titus 3:8. All right. The socialism categorizes people as either the oppressed or the oppressors. You can see this is leading to decay of racial relations in America. If you're either the oppressed or the oppressor, no one takes the opportunity to get to know the real person. All right. That is wrong. That is a sin. Also, a popular form of contemporary socialism called critical theory, critical theory, close quote, quote unquote, violates biblical principles by categorizing people based upon sexual identity, economic status, skin color, ethnicity, or gender. Biblically, there is only one human race made in the image of God. In Christ, all the walls that divide humanity have been broken down. That's in Genesis 1:27, Galatians 3:28, Ephesians 2:14 through 22. And listen, Christians are supposed to behave differently. When you have black, quote unquote, Christians saying the same thing as BLM rioters, we got some work to do in the church. Number 8, in socialism, a utopia comes from a revolutionary change from the outside in. So Marx's utopianism lay in the aim of abolishing the distinction between state and civil society. And in the harmony he assumed would emerge. All right. Again, let me read that again. A quote, Marx's utopianism lay in the aim of abolishing the distinction between state, the government, all right, and civil society, and then the harmony he assumed would emerge. All right. So this goes against the biblical principle that systemic change doesn't start from the outside. Instead, it starts from the inside when people are born again in their hearts from above. That's John chapter 3, verses 3 through 8. And this is number 7. In socialism, the state attempts to control all communication. Where have we seen that? Biden laptop story? All right. You got the DOJ finally admitting what we already knew, that the laptop was real. Was the real deal Holyfield? Of course it was, but they wanted to suppress that information. All right, so in socialist, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. So in socialism, the state attempts to control all communication. In socialistic countries, centralization of the means of communication and transport is in the hands of the state. Why is that? Stop and ask yourself, why is that? They don't want, a behemoth government does not want individuals to think for themselves. So they censor speech. When you censor speech, you can't grow. It's why I even want a primary process still to this day, because I think a primary process makes all of us better, makes our candidates better, and it makes Americans better thinkers when it comes to the issue of freedom. All right. So that is very important. You don't want to stifle speech. It's how you learn. And it's how you learn, even as a conservative, to defend your views, so on, etc. All right. But in the communist nations, people are not allowed to have freedom of speech. Violations can be severely punished. For example, Meta, Facebook, Twitter have been blocked in China since 2009. But here's what they say. A Christian Post, since God owns the world, nobody has the right to restrict free speech, especially the proclamation of the gospel. That's Psalms 24. Also, Acts 1, 8 through 9. Acts chapter 1, verses 8 through 9. Socialism opposes, number 6, opposes, and I'm counting down now. Socialism opposes the rights of a family inheritance in a contemporary Marxist and socialist framework. Either leaving an inheritance to your children, is not allowed, or the state confiscates much of the family inheritance through double taxation. This goes against the biblical principle of leaving an inheritance to your children. Proverbs 13:22. As a matter of fact, the Bible teaches us that we're supposed to leave an inheritance to our children's children, which means we need to be wise stewards of our money. We have to spend less than we make. We just can't go out and blow. If you make, I'm just using a hypothetical number, right? You make $1,000 a month, but you have credit card debt, and you have a car payment, and you have rent. Obviously, that amount is too small. That's crazy. But anyway, you get the picture. You can't spend more than you make. If you learn to live within your means, pay for what you can, still save. I don't care if you save $1. Get in the habit of learning to save. Get in the habit of learning to invest. If your job offers a 401k or something like that, get in the habit of saving and investing. I have a Puerto Rican grandfather that used to tell me, it doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you save. And I used to say, yeah. I mean, I used to think that. I would agree with him, right? But I would think, yeah, whatever. But it's so true. It's so true. Why do you think you have so many millionaires next door that nobody knows about? These are people that didn't have fancy jobs and this and that. They just grinded at work. They didn't spend more than they made. They didn't have exorbitant car payments. They invested, so on, etc. And then in 15, 20 years, they're millionaires just because they were smart with their money, and now they get to enjoy life. All right? Which they should have been enjoying life in the first place, but you know what I'm saying. All right. But we're to leave an inheritance to our children's children. The state should not be able to take away our property. That is very, very important. Proverbs 13:22. All right. Number 5, socialism advocates a progressive income tax. Oh, yeah. Take from the rich. Take from the rich. Tax them more. Tax them more. I mean, freaking thieves. Poor people can be thieves, too. I can't stand when I hear, take from the rich. Take from. Poor people can be thieves, too. You still don't have a right to people's money. That's why believing in God is so important, because there has to be a source for objective truth. All right. So socialists advocate this progressive tax system. This is called a progressive tax structure. That's what socialists want, where people are based on their income. As an example of influence of socialism in the U.S., the top 1%, those are people that make $546,000 and above, earned 20% of the annual gross income in 2019, and paid approximately 40%, 38.8% of the tax bill. So 40% of the population paid 1% of the population paid 40% of the tax bill. 1% paid 40%. You get that? 1% of people paid 40% of the total tax bill for all Americans. All right. And it says the top 1% of tax payers accounted for more income taxes paid than the bottom 90%. So the bottom 90% literally hardly pay any taxes. So it is the rich, and then it is the middle class that gets soaked with taxes. All right. This goes against the biblical principle that all people, irrespective of their income, should pay the same percentage, which is a flat tax. Basically that's a tie. In the church, we believe in tithing. I know there's some churches that don't, but for the most part, the church believes in tithing, and that's giving 10% of your first fruits, if you will, is what we call it. All right, that's in Leviticus 27:30, Proverbs 3:8-10, Matthew 23:23. Number 4, and I'm counting down. Socialists believe in the abolition of private property in land and the application of all rent of land to public purposes. All right. So let me read that. I kind of went over that too fast myself. Socialists believe in the abolition of private property and land and the application of all rents of land to public purposes. So this is antithetical to the biblical premise of the individual right to own private property and the command for believers to create wealth to promote God's covenant. So that's Exodus 20:15, Deuteronomy 8:18, 1 Kings 26, Isaiah 65:21-22, Mark 10:39-21. Listen, some people are going to be poor. I don't believe in the faith, wealth, prosperity gospel. I don't believe in any of that stuff. But if you handle your money the biblical way, many of you, perhaps like me, have listened to Dave Ramsey in the past. You handle your money in a biblical way. If you continue to follow a biblical plan, as Dave Ramsey says, just like your grandmother did, you're going to get rich. It may take you 15 or 20 years, but if you have a plan, you're going to get there. And if you don't live above your means, you can look forward to that, and you can really enjoy your life, and you can give like nobody's business. All right. Socialists claim the state. Number 3, socialists claim the state deserves the highest allegiance. All right. So the government, the state, all right, deserves our allegiance. So in the many communist nations, like the former Soviet Union, modern day countries like North Korea and China, all right, they demand allegiance to the state. And that's where Bibles are confiscated. That's why I read you that story from Town Hall, how the feds worked with banks to flag purchases of Bibles, extremists, and texts. They're scared of people that believe in God. They are. Because people that believe in God, our belief system is totally antithetical to the government taking control of our lives. So that's who they fear. That's why they hate Trump supporters. That's why they hate conservatives. That's why they hate the federal government, the lefties. That's why they hate so-called patriots, because they fear us. They fear us because we want freedom. And in order to control us, they have to curtail the things that make us or empower us, whether that is spiritual freedom, whether that is political freedom, whether that is financial freedom. They got to tackle us on all 3 fronts. And that's what the left is trying to do. So again, number 3, socialists claim the state deserves the highest allegiance. No, they don't. No, they don't. All right. So Bibles are confiscated, church buildings are burned, and evangelism is illegal. This is because they see Christianity as a rival religion to the authority of the humanistic secular state. And that is very, very, very important. They see big government people see Christianity as a rival to their power. Man, this is why, even if you don't believe in the Bible, you are so blessed to be able to live in a Judeo-Christian nation, or at least a nation that isn't so far removed that hopefully we can't restore it. All right. Number 2, socialists claim education belongs solely to the state. So Marxist education aims at producing faithful citizens. Therefore, it is primarily an ideological tool to program children to be loyal to the state. In communist and socialist nations, education and the curriculum are controlled by the state and are not considered the responsibility of the parents. Models like homeschooling children would be illegal. This contradicts the biblical framework regarding parents being responsible for educating their children the way they choose. Proverbs 22:6 and Deuteronomy 6:6-9. And a lot of people misinterpret that verse. Proverbs 22:6, raise a child in the way that he should go, and in the end he will not depart from it. And they believe, many people misinterpret that to say, raise a child to fear the Lord, or raise a child in the ways of God. It means raise a child according to his or her bent. God has given everybody some type of bent, some type of gift. And it's incumbent upon you as a parent, when God blesses you with a child, to sit there. Man, what are what are his strengths, my daughter's strengths? What are my son's strengths? What has God created them to be? Where are they strong? Where are they weak? Where can I help guide them? Because when you go to school, you go to, a government school, then all of a sudden you're just one amongst many. But it's up to the parent to hone in on their child's gifting and say, son or daughter, I think you're good at this. You encourage them, you build them, they become a relevant and a significant and instrumental part of society based upon the gifts that God has given them. All right. That's Proverbs 20:22-6, Deuteronomy 6:6-9. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when number 3, socialists claim the state deserves the highest allegiance, you can retort that in Matthew 6:33 and 1 Timothy 6:15 for those of you that are interested. Number 1, final. All right. Socialism is against the biblical view of the nuclear family. You guys might remember Black Lives Matter. One of the things that they ended up scrubbing it on their site. But one of the things when they developed their site, when they were sending all the money to the Democrat Party and pretending like they were supporting black people, the little commies. All right. But they were for the destruction of the nuclear family. I forget exactly how they framed it, but it wasn't that far off. They were against the nuclear family, man, woman, and child. All right, forget what your political leanings are. Forget what your cultural leanings are. I want you to think about this. Let's pretend. I want you to pretend in this exercise with me that all of society were either gay men or lesbian women. Could they reproduce? Or if it was a society of just lesbian women, could they reproduce? Or gay men, could they reproduce? Obviously not. The society would break down. Obviously, it would come to an abrupt end because people would die, right? The society would die. People live 70, 80 years and then society is just dead. It's dead and gone. So obviously, you need male-female relationships to continue on with society. I mean, it's really as easy as that. But the nuclear family is a safe place for children to learn how to deal with people, feel safe, feel comforted, so on, etc. They say here, Marxists argue that the nuclear family performs ideological functions for capitalism. The family acts as a unit of consumption and teaches passive acceptance of hierarchy. Oh my God. It is also the institution through which the wealthy pass down their private property to their children, thus reproducing class inequality. So you see that? The truth is, there's a lot of family privilege inside of the United States of America. If you grow up, and I'm not knocking single mothers or even single dads or whatever, but I want you to understand, never bash the ideal. Because you want your children, if you really want the best for your children, I don't care if you're a single mom, you want your kid to have to get married to the opposite sex and have kids, or at least you should. Be like these lefty communists, all right? Or you should. That is the best for society. That is the best. That is the best for them. I mean, it's really as simple as that. But there's family privilege. When you have a dad might be stronger in teaching you about, I don't know, fixing cars, economics, doing, manly stuff, or, and a mother, although this is becoming less likely or harder to find in society, a little more nurturing, but she can handle a lot of stuff that dad frankly can't handle. Women have a tolerance to be able to handle a whole bunch of crap that men can't. But they're total, but they're nurturers. We're just different. God built us different, and he built us complementary as well. So it's very important. The nuclear family is very important. Listen, if you graduate high school, this was from the Brookings Institute. This is a liberal think tank. You graduate high school, you get a job, you get married, and then have your kids. Listen to me again. Graduate high school, get a job, get married first, and then have kids. 90% of the time, you won't be broke. You're going to be in the middle class. You won't be poverty stricken where you can't afford a meal every day. All right. Where you can't eventually buy a home and all that kind of stuff. Follow God's plan. Follow God's plan. It's successful. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show. I haven't been on for a couple of days. So guys, let me just mention, please, Mike Lindell has been going through some crazy stuff. MyPillow.com. Not only do you get to support an American business, loves America, providing American jobs and American manufacturing, and I suggest you buy as many American-made products as you can and find companies that are making things in America. Don't, to the best of your ability, try to avoid buying stuff from China. It's virtually impossible at times, but I try. I literally try and search. I encourage you to do the same. And one way that you can do that is by purchasing materials that you may need anyway. I mean, towels, slippers, mattress toppers, Giza, dream sheets, the My Pillow 2.0, stuff that you'll need to make your life just a little better, good night's rest, comfort, all that kind of stuff. If you're going to buy it anyway, don't go to Target. Go to mypillow.com. Use my promo code, Carl, C-A-R-L. Click on mypillow.com, the radio podcast square at the top, and put in my name, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. Guys, until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.